I've purchased 51% of your company's shares, effective immediately. I slid the documents across the polished mahogany table, savoring the way William Parker's face drained of color. The board members froze, their coffee cups suspended, midway to their mouths. "This can't be legal," William sputtered, his manicured fingers trembling as he flipped through the paperwork. "Oh, but it is," I replied, smoothing down my Armani suit, a far cry from the paper towels and rubber gloves he'd forced me to wear just 8 months ago. "Perhaps if you'd paid more attention to your plummeting stock price instead of finding new ways to humiliate your employees, you might have noticed someone was buying up shares." The boardroom fell silent. 10 executives in $1,000 suits, staring at me like I was an alien who had crashed their country club. "As majority shareholder, my first order of business is reorganizing upper management," I continued, pulling out another folder. "I've prepared termination packages for several executives, effective immediately." I slid individual envelopes across the table, watching their faces as they realized what was happening. "Mr. Parker, yours is particularly generous considering the circumstances. I even included a map to the nearest public restroom. I hear they're always looking for volunteer cleaners." William's face contorted with rage. "You vindictive bitch." "Careful," I cut him off. "That's exactly the kind of hostile workplace language that will feature prominently in the company-wide cultural overhaul I'm implementing, starting today." I stood up, buttoning my jacket with steady hands that betrayed none of the wild exhilaration coursing through my veins. "Boardroom cleared by noon, gentlemen. Security is waiting outside to escort you to your offices where you can collect your personal items." I allowed myself the smallest of smiles. "Don't worry about the bathrooms. Unlike you, I hire professionals to clean them." As I walked out, leaving chaos in my wake, I couldn't help but think about the long, twisted path that had led me here. From scrubbing toilets to owning the company that once made me do it. And it all started with a cup of coffee spilled on William Parker's custom Italian shoes. 8 months earlier, I was Alexandra Reid, newly hired marketing specialist at Pinnacle Technologies. With an MBA from Northwestern and 3 years at a respected agency, I thought I was on track for the career I'd always wanted. My first 2 weeks were promising. I had ideas that my immediate supervisor, Melanie, seemed to appreciate. My project. Proposals were solid. I was fitting in with the team. Then came the quarterly review meeting where I accidentally knocked over my coffee cup, sending hot liquid cascading onto William Parker's shoes and the pristine boardroom carpet. "I'm so sorry," I gasped, scrambling for napkins. "Let me help clean that up." William's face had twisted into a mask of disgust. "Are you always this clumsy? Or is it a special performance for your first executive meeting?" The room had gone silent, everyone suddenly fascinated by their notepads. "It was an accident," I said, feeling my cheeks burn. "I'll pay for any cleaning costs." "Oh, you certainly will," William replied, his voice dangerously soft. I didn't understand what he meant until the next morning, when Melanie approached my desk with an uncomfortable expression. "William wants to see you in his office," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. I followed her down the corridor, mentally preparing my apology again. Maybe he wanted to discuss the dry cleaning bill for his shoes. I was ready to handle it professionally. What I wasn't ready for was the rubber gloves and cleaning supplies arranged on his desk. "Since you're so concerned about cleanliness," William said without looking up from his computer, "you can handle the executive bathroom today. It seems the cleaning staff called in sick." I stared at him, certain this was some bizarre joke. "Excuse me?" "The executive bathroom needs cleaning," he repeated slowly, as if talking to a child. "Since you've demonstrated such concern for keeping things tidy, I thought you'd be perfect for the job." I waited for the punchline. It never came. "I'm a marketing specialist," I said carefully. "Bathroom maintenance isn't in my job description." William finally looked up, his eyes cold. "Your job description is whatever I say it is. Unless you'd prefer to tender your resignation?" The threat was clear. With student loans breathing down, My neck and rent due in a week, resignation wasn't an option, but neither was this humiliation. "This is inappropriate," I said, working to keep my voice steady. "If there's an issue with the cleaning staff, we should contact facilities management. What's inappropriate is ruining a pair of $200 shoes and creating a scene in front of the entire executive team," William replied. "Consider this your opportunity to make amends." I could feel the weight of a career-defining choice pressing down on me. Walk out and lose everything I'd worked for, or submit to this power play. "I'll speak to HR about this," I said, reaching for my last line of defense. William's laugh was dismissive. "By all means. Maria in HR is my sister-in-law. I'm sure she'll be very sympathetic to your complaint." That's when I saw it, the flicker of enjoyment in his eyes. He was getting off on this, on breaking me down, on exerting his power. He didn't just want compliance. He wanted to see me humiliated. Something hardened inside me at that moment. A seed of cold, calculated rage that would eventually grow into something he could never have anticipated. I picked up the gloves. "Just this once," I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. William's smile was all predator. "We'll see." That afternoon, I cleaned the executive bathroom, every toilet, every sink, every mirror. I did it methodically, thoroughly, silently. And with each swipe of the cloth, each splash of disinfectant, I made myself a promise. This would not be my life. This would not define me. This would end, one way or another. When I finished, I returned the supplies to William's office. He wasn't there, but Melanie was, collecting some files. The pity in her eyes when she saw me was almost worse than William's cruelty. "It was just this once," I said, needing to say it out loud, to make it true. Melanie's expression said she knew better. "Alexandra, this isn't the first time. He finds someone to target in every department. Usually women, usually those who stand out." "What happens to them?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "They quit, or transfer, or break down." She hesitated. "No one lasts." "What about HR? The board? Isn't there anyone who can stop him?" Melanie shook her head. "He's the CEO's nephew. He's untouchable." I went home that night and cried. Not sad tears, but tears of pure, helpless fury. Then I opened my laptop and began researching everything I could about Pinnacle Technologies, William Parker, and corporate power structures. What I learned was both disturbing and illuminating. William had a history of complaints that had mysteriously disappeared from HR records. Pinnacle's corporate culture was notoriously toxic, with high turnover and low morale hidden beneath impressive profit margins. And most interestingly, the company was publicly traded, but struggling. Their stock had been steadily declining for the past year, making them vulnerable. I stayed up all night, formulating a plan that seemed equal parts insane and brilliant. A plan that would require patience, sacrifice, and every penny I had saved or could borrow. But first, I had to survive William Parker. As Melanie had warned, the bathroom incident wasn't a one-time humiliation. It became William's favorite way to exert control over me. Any minor mistake, any perceived slight, and I'd find cleaning supplies on my desk with a note specifying which bathroom needed attention. "The marketing team seems to be running low on tasks if you have time for janitorial work," he'd say loudly, when passing my desk, ensuring everyone heard. Or, "Alexandra, since you're so hands-on with company facilities, perhaps you can check the soap dispensers on the executive floor." Each comment was designed to diminish me, to remind everyone that I was beneath him, that I was submitting to his power play. And for 2 agonizing months, I let him think it was working. I cleaned the bathrooms when ordered, accepted the humiliation without complaint, and played the role of the broken subordinate. All while setting my real plan in motion, Step 1 was financial reconnaissance. I liquidated my modest 401k from my previous job, pulled together my savings, and took out a personal loan using my car as collateral. Altogether, I managed to scrape together about $75,000, not nearly enough to make a dent in a company like Pinnacle, but enough to start. Step 2 was information gathering. I began volunteering for projects that would give me access to different parts of the company's operations. I stayed late, ostensibly to catch up on work, but really to observe patterns. Who had real decision-making power? Which departments were essential versus bloated, where the inefficiencies lay? During one of these late nights, I discovered something interesting. Pinnacle had developed a promising AI customer service platform, but Williams' department had shelved it, favoring a more traditional approach championed by one of his golf buddies. The AI solution could have saved the company millions and put them ahead of competitors, but politics had prevailed over profit. I filed this information away, adding it to my growing arsenal. Step 3 was the most challenging. Building a BO network of allies without raising suspicion. This required a delicate balance of earning trust while appearing non-threatening. I started with Melanie, who had shown me a small kindness. Then Raj from IT, who had witnessed one of William's bathroom assignments and silently helped me afterward. Then Sarah from finance, who had access to information about the company's true financial health. I never revealed my ultimate plan. Instead, I positioned myself as someone trying to survive until a better opportunity came along, which wasn't far from the truth. "How do you stand it?" Raj asked me one evening, after William had loudly announced that the executive lounge needed the Alexandra treatment following a minor spill. "I need the job," I said simply. "And I'm learning a lot." "About what?" "Industrial strength toilet." "Cleaners?" I smiled mysteriously. "About patience, and about how companies really work." While this web of subtle alliances was forming, I continued my most important work, using my limited capital to begin purchasing Pinnacle stock. The price was low due to recent underperformance, allowing me to acquire more shares than would normally be possible with my budget. But $75,000 was still a drop in the bucket. I needed more, much more, to make my plan viable. The opportunity came from an unexpected source. 3 months into my employment at Pinnacle, I was assigned to a project analyzing consumer response to our latest software update. The data showed a disturbing trend. Customers were unhappy with the changes, and many were considering switching to competitors. When I presented these findings at the department meeting, William dismissed them outright. "This is alarmist nonsense," he declared. "Customers always resist change initially. They'll adapt." "With respect," I pressed, "the data suggests this is more than routine resistance. We're seeing a potential 22% customer drop-off rate." William's expression darkened. "If you spent more time analyzing properly and less time on your janitorial pursuits, perhaps your conclusions wouldn't be so flawed." The room went silent. Several colleagues avoided eye contact, embarrassed by his naked cruelty. "The report is sound," Melanie interjected unexpectedly. I reviewed Alexandra's methodology myself. William's glare shifted to her. "Then perhaps the marketing department as a whole needs closer oversight. We'll revisit these numbers next quarter when customers have adjusted." After the meeting, I approached Melanie to thank her. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," she said firmly. "He's getting worse, and your analysis was solid. We're going to lose those customers, and when we do, he'll find someone to blame. Probably you." "Or you," I said, recognizing the risk she'd taken. Melanie nodded grimly. "I've been updating my resume. You should too." Instead, I went home and refined my plan. The customer data had given me an idea. A bold, possibly reckless idea, but one with tremendous potential. The next day, I requested a meeting with Calvin Zhang, the quiet, brilliant engineer who had developed the shelved AI customer service platform We met at a coffee shop several blocks from the office. "Why are you interested in my old project?" Calvin asked suspiciously. "It's dead." William made sure of that. "I think it could be resurrected," I replied. "Not at Pinnacle, at least not yet, but as a standalone solution." Calvin's eyes widened as he realized what I was suggesting. "You want to develop it independently? That would violate my non-compete." "Not if you're properly distanced from it," I explained. "I'm not bound by the same restrictions, and I know investors who might be interested." This was a stretch, but I was counting on Calvin's frustration at seeing his innovation buried to override his caution. "You're talking about stealing company IP," he said, but I noticed he hadn't immediately rejected the idea. "I'm talking about developing a parallel solution based on publicly available AI frameworks," I corrected. "Your specific code stays at Pinnacle. The concept of AI customer service isn't proprietary." Calvin studied me with new interest. "What's your angle? Why risk your job for this?" I decided to show some of my cards. Because Pinnacle is mismanaged and vulnerable. Because William Parker is a sadistic tyrant who shouldn't be in charge of a lemonade stand, let alone a tech department. And because I believe your solution could be worth millions in the right hands. Calvin's laugh was unexpected. "Wow, I thought you were just the quiet marketing girl who, cleans bathrooms on command." I finished for him. "That's what William wants everyone to see. It's not who I am." By the end of our meeting, Calvin had agreed to act as an arm's-length consultant on what we were now calling Project Phoenix. He would provide guidance without directly writing code, keeping him technically within the bounds of his non-compete. Over the next month, I worked my regular job during the day, cleaned bathrooms when ordered, and spent my nights and weekends building what would become Rapid Response AI. I hired 2 freelance developers using the last of my savings, giving them components to work on without revealing the full picture. It was exhausting, thankless work. There were nights I fell asleep at my keyboard, mornings I arrived at Pinnacle with my eyes burning from fatigue. William noticed, of course. "Late night, Alexandra?" he asked with mock concern. "I hope you're not letting your extracurricular activities affect your performance here, though I suppose bathroom cleaning doesn't require much mental acuity." I smiled placidly. "Just dedicated to doing my best work, Mr. Parker." "Good," he said, "because the 6th floor men's room needs attention. Someone was unwell in there last night." I didn't let my expression change as I collected the cleaning supplies. Each humiliation was now a deposit in the bank of my resolve, accruing interest that would one day come due. What William couldn't know, was that I was already in talks with Angel Capital Partners, a venture capital firm specializing in AI startups. They had seen the prototype of Rapid Response AI and were intrigued by its potential to disrupt the customer service industry. "Your solution addresses a gap in the market," Marcel Devereaux, the lead investor, told me during our 3rd meeting. "But we need to see proof of concept with a real client before we commit significant funding." This was the chicken and egg problem that plagues many startups. Without funding, we couldn't properly develop and market to clients. Without clients, we couldn't secure funding. The solution came from another unexpected source, Sarah from Pinnacle's finance department. "I couldn't help noticing your search history on the company server," she said one day, cornering me in the break room. "AI customer service platforms, venture capital firms, startup valuation metrics." My blood ran cold. If William discovered what I was planning, he'd find a way to destroy it. And me. "Research for a market analysis," I said carefully. Sarah's smile was knowing. "My brother runs customer service for Midtech Solutions. They've been looking for an AI platform to reduce their call center costs. Interested in an introduction?" It was a lifeline, and I grabbed it. Within weeks, Midtech had agreed to a pilot program using Rapid Response AI. The results exceeded everyone's expectations: 28% reduction in call wait times, 15% improvement in customer satisfaction scores, and projected annual savings of $1.2 million. Armed with these results, I returned to Angel Capital Partners. This time, Marcel didn't hesitate. We're prepared to offer $2 million in Series A funding for a 25% stake in Rapid Response AI, he announced. And just like that, my sideline project was a real company with real funding. The question now was how to leverage this success into my ultimate goal, taking control of Pinnacle. The answer came in the form of Pinnacle's quarterly earnings report, which showed exactly what I had predicted months earlier: a significant drop in customer retention and a corresponding decline in revenue. The stock price, already weak, plummeted by 32% in a single day. It was time to accelerate my plan. I'm resigning, effective immediately, I told Melanie 6 months after the coffee spill that had started it all. Her surprise was evident. But why now? I thought you were determined to stick it out. I found another opportunity, I said simply. Life's too short to spend it cleaning executive bathrooms. Word of my resignation reached William within the hour. He summoned me to his office, his expression a mixture of irritation and satisfaction. Giving up so soon, Alexandra? I thought you had more persistence. I've learned everything I came here to learn, I replied enigmatically. His eyes narrowed. And what exactly was that? How not to run a company, I said pleasantly. It's been an invaluable education. For once, William seemed at a loss for words. I used his momentary silence to place my resignation letter on his desk. No exit interview necessary, I added. I've detailed my experiences quite thoroughly in emails to the board, complete with dates, times, and witnesses to each incident of workplace harassment. William's face darkened. No one will believe you. Maybe not. I conceded, but they might start paying attention to how many talented people leave this company under similar circumstances. Eventually, patterns become impossible to ignore. I walked out of his office for the last time, feeling lighter than I had in months. Though, next phase of my plan required complete focus on Rapid Response AI. With Angel Capital's funding, we expanded rapidly, hiring a development team, including Calvin, who finally left Pinnacle, and securing additional clients. Our success attracted attention. 6 months after launch, Rapid Response was valued at $12 million. My personal stake was worth $7.8 million on paper, not liquid, but enough to leverage for my true goal. Meanwhile, Pinnacle continued its downward spiral. Their failure to innovate, combined with the toxic culture that drove away talent, had reduced their market cap to a fraction of its former value. The stock was now trading at historic lows. I approached Marcel with a proposition. I want to use my stake in Rapid Response as collateral for a loan, I explained. I need $18 million to execute the next phase of my business plan. Marcel raised an eyebrow. That's a significant sum. May I ask what you're planning to acquire? Pinnacle Technologies, I said. Or more specifically, 51% of its outstanding shares. To his credit, Marcel didn't laugh or dismiss the idea outright. Instead, he asked the right questions. Why Pinnacle? What synergies existed between our AI solution and their products? How would we address their declining performance? I laid out my analysis: the undervalued intellectual property, the salvageable client relationships, the talent that could be retained with proper leadership. I also shared my personal history with the company, including the systematic harassment I had endured. Most people would just want revenge, Marcel observed. This isn't about revenge, I replied. It's about justice, and about building something better from the ruins of something toxic. After 2 weeks of due diligence, Angel Capital Partners agreed to back my play. With their support and my stake in Rapid Response as leverage, I secured the necessary financing. Then, working through several shell companies to avoid tipping my hand, I began systematically purchasing Pinnacle stock. The depressed price worked in my favor, allowing each dollar to secure more shares than would normally be possible. By the time anyone at Pinnacle noticed the pattern of acquisitions, it was too late. I had secured 49% of the outstanding shares, and was positioned to cross the majority threshold with one final purchase. The last 2% came from an unexpected ally, Melanie, who had been quietly holding on to founders' shares from the early days of the company. "I want a seat on the new board," she said when we met secretly to finalize the transfer, "and a guarantee that the people who've been suffering under William will be protected." "Already in the plan," I assured her. "I'm not coming back to replicate the old culture. I'm coming back to transform it." With her shares added to my holdings, I now controlled 51% of Pinnacle Technologies. I was the majority shareholder, the de facto owner of the company that had once forced me to clean toilets as punishment for a spilled cup of coffee. Which brings us back to that boardroom, 8 months after my humiliation began, watching William Parker's face as he realized who now held his fate in their hands. "This is a hostile takeover," William sputtered as security waited to escort him from the building. "You've been planning this from the beginning." "Not from the beginning," I corrected. "The plan evolved. Originally, I just wanted a fair chance to contribute my skills without being degraded. You made it personal." "By making you clean a bathroom?" "For God's sake, it was a character-building exercise." I smiled thinly. "Then consider this your character-building exercise, William. I'm sure your next employer will value the experience, if you can find one after how thoroughly you've destroyed your reputation here." As he was led away, still protesting, I turned to the remaining board members, those I had chosen to retain based on their records and reputations. "Pinnacle has lost its way," I told them. "We've sacrificed innovation for politics, talent for obedience, and integrity for short-term gains. That ends today." Over the following weeks, I implemented the changes I had been planning for months. The shelved AI customer service platform was revived and integrated with Rapid Responses technology, creating a best-in-class solution that immediately attracted client interest. The toxic middle managers who had enabled William's behavior were replaced with leaders chosen for their technical skills and emotional intelligence. Transparent reporting structures were established, and everyone, from executives to entry-level staff, received training on workplace harassment and how to report it. 6 months after the takeover, Pinnacle's stock had recovered 60% of its losses. Employee retention improved dramatically, and the customers who had been leaving in droves began to return, attracted by our innovative solutions and improved service. The transformation wasn't without challenges. There were skeptics who questioned my experience, my methods, my motives. There were former allies of William who tried to undermine the new culture. There were technical hurdles and market pressures and the 1,000 natural shocks that any business heir is subject to. But through it all, I maintained the same quiet determination that had sustained me during those months of humiliation. The same patient, methodical approach that had turned a cup of spilled coffee into a complete corporate revolution. 1 year to the day after I'd first been handed those rubber gloves, I stood in front of Pinnacle's assembled staff to unveil our new headquarters. A building designed with input from employees at all levels, featuring state-of-the-art workspaces, collaborative environments, and yes, professionally maintained restrooms. "This building is a symbol of what we value," I told them. "Transparency, collaboration, respect. But most importantly, it represents opportunity, the chance for each of you to contribute your talents without fear of humiliation or harassment." As applause filled the atrium, I caught sight of Melanie watching from the side, a knowing smile on her face. We both understood what many others still didn't, that my story wasn't really about revenge, though that had been a satisfying chapter. It was about transformation, of a company, of a culture, and of myself. From the woman forced to clean bathrooms, to prove her compliance, I had become the architect of a new kind of workplace. One where spilled coffee was just spilled coffee, not an opportunity for power plays and humiliation. William Parker had intended to break me. Instead, he had forged me into exactly the kind of leader that Pinnacle had always needed. One who understood that true power comes not from domination, but from vision, determination, and the courage to stand up after being knocked down. We moved into our new offices. I kept only one memento from the old building: the rubber gloves I'd been handed that first day. They hang in a shadow box on my office wall, not as a reminder of humiliation, but as a testament to how far I've come, and how far I'll go to ensure no one else has to walk the path I traveled. Sometimes, when faced with a particularly difficult decision, I glance at those gloves and ask myself, what would the bathroom cleaner do? The answer is always the same: whatever it takes to build something better than what came before. Because that's the real revenge, not just destroying what hurt you, but creating something magnificent in its place.